Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the 1% Better podcast with your host, Rob O'Donoghue.
Hello folks, welcome to another live 1% Better podcast. This week I have decided to just go solo and kind of go through a few bits and pieces that have been going on the last couple of weeks, what's on the radar or the plan for the next couple of days and weeks, and see if anyone checks in through Spreaker, where you can hear the show live as it happens on the go. And if you do sign up to the Spreaker app, I think you can follow me on Spreaker, and then you can log in and chat with me during the show if you so should wish. It's an option, it's a feature, and see if that's something you would like to do. I would also, at some point in the future, when somebody does chat, and if they do, whenever that might happen, they could connect in over Skype, where I'd like to potentially at some point in the future, maybe when the audience levels grow or find a right time, or maybe have another guest on, to have kind of a dial-in show. Bit of fun, try something different. I'm certainly all about trying to do that, go outside the comfort zone a little bit and try a few bits out. Okay, so let's talk like nobody is listening, and maybe they're not, but you're listening to this off. If not listening to it live, you may be listening to it as a download from the 1% Better channel or subscription service where you've got your podcasts, because it'll go up there straight after the live show ends. So definitely a few things I wanted to talk about. This podcast, as I mentioned the last couple of weeks, I'm using it to give me that little bit of time to do what I was doing on the intros to the 1% Better show on a Thursday or Friday. I won't do those long-winded intros now. I'd prefer to just do it on this show, this kind of talk show, this rolled, this sort of show where I'm just kind of talking about whatever comes up. And hopefully then, if you do want to avoid these rambles, you can just listen to the full 1% Better episodes when they come out. So, a few things to chat about. Over the last week, I've definitely met a few new connections with people from different parts of the world as a result of the Rosanna Arquette episode. So that was quite the experience. I hope you have checked out the 864 episode with Rosanna Arquette. If you haven't, please do. I think you'll enjoy it. A lot of good feedback on it. The circumstances leading up to that connection, how that happened, I've been asked that a few times over the last week or so. So I decided maybe here just to explain a little bit about it, just for context. Excuse me. So yeah, basically when I interviewed Madeleine Black back in probably maybe April timeframe, and then released a podcast with her about a month later, we talked about her story, her book called Unbroken, where she was violently sexually abused at the age of 12, 13, and back in the late 70s, herself and a friend were abducted and abused, and it was a story she buried for years and years, and then I think when her own daughter hit the age of 13, it brought back a huge barrage of feelings, memories, emotions, and it's something she dealt with then at that time, and wrote the book about the story and where she's at right now. So check out that episode. I can't remember what number it was this season, maybe 15 or 14. Really good conversation story from Madeleine. But at the time Madeleine retweeted or posted out about the episode, I got a like or a follow from Rosanna Arquette, and at the time I thought this was probably a fake account or a fan page or fan account of Rosanna Arquette, but it actually was the real one. I at the time just liked her comments and said thank you, and left it at that. And then over the next while, every now and again there had been the odd comment or tweet or like, and stayed semi in touch for that duration. And then about a month ago, it was actually July 4th, she had posted something. I connected with her, said happy 4th of July, and then cheekily asked if she would be interested at some point down the road to come on to the podcast, the 864 one, which is the shorter one, to have a chat, just talk about her as a person, not necessarily her as a movie star. And she agreed, and then I worked with her PR person for the last while, Danny, and Danny was and is excellent to deal with, so that was awesome. Thank you, Danny. And he made it happen, and then we chatted last week on the Monday, which was a real treat, a real honour, and she was very easy to talk to. A few people did say to me that I sounded relaxed and comfortable. Probably wasn't as relaxed and comfortable as I sounded, or certainly wasn't maybe in the build up to it, but once we got into the conversation, and just like chatting to anybody else, and I think sometimes we can get carried away with the people you see on TV or in the movies, or think they're something different than the rest of us, and that's not necessarily the case. So that's the story about Rosanna Arquette on the 864. I would highly recommend you check it out, and would love to hear your feedback, and hopefully it's one you enjoy. So that was the 864 last week, and I did the Miriam Hanane podcast this night last week, which was a 1% better one. Hopefully I'm not confusing people with the two different ones. They're both very much around the same topic, same theme, just in different durations. And I've been alternating release dates a little bit over the last while. Supposedly a bad thing to be doing for consistency, and we'll try and get into a proper consistent rhythm, but things are a little bit all over the place. So just kind of getting them out there when I can. So that was 864 last week with Rosanna, and on then to this week. So no live interview tonight. I have a number of guests lined up over the next number of weeks, and hopefully we'll do some more live interviews in due course. But out on Thursday this week, I will be releasing the latest episode of the 1% Better podcast. And this one is an episode I recorded with Davidji about 6-8 weeks ago, and I mentioned him probably on other episodes, and he is somebody that I was very, very delighted, very honoured to chat to as well. He is a very well-known, world-recognised, I suppose, mindfulness expert, meditator, but his story is very interesting in that he spent the first 20 years of his life, of his career, working career, in corporate America, working in New York, working in mergers and acquisitions. And then around the time of 9/11, I think he had a change of heart. He felt that he wasn't happy in life, and that led him on it to a journey through India, and then to California, to the UK, California, and then worked for Deepak Chopra for a number of years. So I don't want to give away too much about the episode, but his story is fascinating. He was able to combine, his undoubted expertise in the corporate world and learn an awful lot about the area he was so passionate about in meditation, mindfulness, and being, I guess, just being, and developed those skills over the last number of years. And then he's gone out on his own and doing a lot of that now. He's somebody I listen to. He does a lot of guided meditations. He has a big following on social media. He published a number of books, and has new stuff coming out all the time. And he has a very powerful voice, as you will hear on the show. Or if you ever listen to any of his guided meditations, you will certainly get that. So that's Davidji. I would recommend you checking out the podcast with him on Thursday when it comes out, or over the course of the weekend. You will definitely learn something about him, but learn something about different types and approaches to meditation or mindfulness. He really explains what it is, what it isn't. And if you've been listening to this podcast over the last year and a half, excuse me, you will have heard me talk about it, what it is and it isn't a lot, and different tools and techniques and different people I interviewed. So Davidji is just another, but just not any old meditator. He really has a real vast knowledge of experience and is a real interesting guy as well. So I would encourage you to check that one out when it comes out, and hopefully you enjoy it and get something very positive from it. So one sec, I'm just going to take a little drink of water here, because as you can hear, I'm a little bit hoarse. Okay, so this week on Monday, I typically release, or try to release every week, a 1 minute Monday short video about something I've learned through a book or through an episode, or something I read, or just something I developed myself over a period of time. And this week it's called, the one that I released called The Rule of Three. So you can check that out on the website robertthegreen.ie. It's on the video page, and it's I think it's episode or edition 14 or so of 1 Minute Monday. It's interesting when I post these out, sometimes you get big reactions, sometimes you don't. That's fair enough. It's always interesting, the comments and feedback you get. This one is interesting because it's one I've developed that works for me, but obviously you may have it's all around your morning technique, or what you do in the morning to set yourself up for success for the day. And it's great to see on LinkedIn mainly is where you get a lot of the comments, so different people's approaches to what works for them. And if you don't have something that works for you, maybe that's something you could try out. Check that out and take on board and put it into practice yourself, and see if that gets you off to a good start. So that's the 1 Minute Monday clip. What are we looking at next? Okay, so let me see, what am I talking about? Yeah, I guess over the last while, with all the episodes that have come out with the new 864 show, now probably out to 10 or so episodes, maybe 1% better once a week, and sometimes this live show. Certainly a goal for me this year was to increase the content output, but hopefully not decrease the quality, and definitely put up the amount coming out. And again, all interviews, all hopefully positive stuff that you can take something from. Something inevitably has to suffer, and for me it's probably the amount of articles or content I've been writing and putting out. So less of that maybe. I'd like to do more, because when I do put stuff out, you tend to see people going towards written word as opposed to audio, and just vice versa. You just, sometimes people don't do both, and that's fair enough as well. You just kind of understand your audience a little bit more. But I have a few in the works. I'd encourage you to check out the blog page on the site as well. For those of you that have been following for the year, know I'm doing what I'm calling Dry 18, and I've put together a list of a few articles around the journey I've been on from that so far, learning some bits and pieces about myself and how life is when you're not boozing at all, and how to combat some of the things that crop up when you're sitting in a pub and not drinking, and everybody else are drinking. So that's something to read about, and hopefully get something from yourself. Over the last number of months, the podcast, I suppose, has been getting into different directories across the internet. Podcast directories really is how it works. You put your podcast on a hosting platform, connected to iTunes, connected to a few others, and then from those they're kind of connected together, and a network is created, and the podcast then shows up in lots of different places and podcast apps organically, not so much that you're actually forcing it or sending it to those. It just gets picked up and spread across the way. It's interesting, the data that you can get through the Spreaker app that I use. It shows that 50% of folks that listen to the podcast still come through Apple devices, primarily the Apple app, or maybe I don't know if there's another way of listening through an Apple device, if it's on your laptop or your iPhone. But that's where the listenership still is, and seems to be holding firm there. The podcast has recently been added, both of them, to Spotify, and that's a lengthy process to get there. I think it's speeding up now, but they're there. And I know a lot of people listen to use Spotify for their music, maybe not so much for their podcasts so far, but it's there. And at the moment, 1% of the listeners check it out via Spotify. Hasn't taken control or hold there yet. Spreaker, which is this solution, I think about 4% of people check through there. Android apps, only 5%. Google Podcasts, which is that new Google app that came out only about a month or so ago, 1% as well. So it's really dominated by Apple, just as a FYI. So I suppose when I do posts, probably makes more sense for me just to post for the website and for iTunes or for the Apple Podcast player, because that's where the majority are. But just if you are on a device that isn't Apple, you can get it through all of those other podcast apps or providers with probably Spreaker, Android app, Google Podcasts, or Spotify is ones that people go to. Overcast, there's Podcast Republic, so many, but it's all out there. So maybe that's just hopefully something for you to be aware of and to know where you can get the show when you might need it. I'm looking at the time, 18 minutes, so I wasn't going to do much longer than 20. So just a couple of quick ones. I have signed up or been signed up to present at the International Podcast Day on September 30th. So that will be presenting from here, from my studio, over, I think there'll be a video stream as well as an audio stream. Looking forward to that. And it's International Podcast Day. It's the day of podcasting, and that will go on for many, many hours over more than just one day. Obviously, with all the time zones, it's probably 30 hours in total. I think my slot is at 6 p.m. on a Sunday evening, which is probably 1 p.m. East Coast, 10 a.m. West Coast, and wherever else you're listening, just adjust. And yeah, that's going to be fun. An hour talking. At this point, I think it's going to be mainly talking and hopefully interacting with listeners and folks on whatever device they're coming in on, working on the topic, what I'll be talking about. Obviously, it has to do with podcasting and the value around it. So I have something in the works there, some ideas to tease out. I'm looking forward to putting that out there. So that's September 30th. What else is going on? I do have a bunch of questions that have come in over a period of time around how to podcast. And one of the things I'm putting together is a presentation around that. I was considering maybe doing a workshop around how to set up your own podcast, the do's and don'ts, what you learn, what you learned along the way. Maybe doing a workshop on that either online or potentially in person if folks in the Cork region might be interested. It's probably a month or two out before I would be ready to do it, but just an idea. If anyone has any ideas around that or are interested in that, let me know. I do get questions around the technical setup, as well as the planning. So my background in project management has absolutely made huge differences for me from actually coming up with an idea to do a podcast and actually executing the idea, putting a plan together and following through on it. The creative side or the dreamer in me could come up with lots of things. If the left brain and the more structured type part of me wasn't there, I wouldn't have probably put any of this together or have got out the gate at all, or would have potentially given up halfway through. So those skills are very important, and how to plan that out, how to put your planning in place, what vision you have for it, how to create a mission statement for your podcast, and what success looks like, how you measure it. All of those things have been very helpful for me. Things I've picked up throughout my career professionally have been massively important in making this actually happen. And yeah, I definitely think there's some learnings there, something I could share. Be happy to do so. I do offer 2 to 4 hours a month free pro bono coaching at the moment as well. That's on the website if folks would like to check that out. Delighted to chat with people, be it about podcasting or whatever. I know a lot of times people are eager to do stuff and are good at delivering things, but maybe aren't sure if it's the right thing or what that is and what is meaning for them or what's purpose for them. And through coaching, I can have learned some tools and techniques on what's worked for me. So definitely happy to share that. I would love to help others, and that's what the whole idea of 1% Better is really all about. And hopefully, you get that and feel like getting in touch with me, and hopefully we can talk and help. So I will wrap up there. Next week I am traveling with work. I am going to be in Austin, Texas, and probably quite busy, so I don't know if I'll get time in the evenings or the early mornings, probably the early mornings, to put some content out. I don't think I'll do a live show next week unless somebody knows Tim Ferriss or is it Alex Jones in Austin. I think they're both from Austin, or anyone else famous celebrity podcasters from Austin. If you're listening or know somebody, get in touch. I'll be in Austin. I would love to talk with you. I will bring a mic just in case, and we could do some impromptu 864 15-minute podcast. That would be pretty cool. But looking forward to going there, and probably not going to get a whole lot of content created, but get some time to write. 7 hours, 9 hours on a plane is probably the best time for me to ever get content created, because it's just distraction-less, if that's a word. And so that's next week. Probably not much coming, but I do have a 1% Better podcast lined up for next week, so that might come out on the Thursday or Friday. Just a heads up. And finally, as always, I would love to hear from you to help me improve, help me get the show better. Is this live random show worth your 30 or 40 megs on your phone to download and listen to back? Is it too long? Did you get something out of it? Hopefully I've planted a few ideas in your mind, hopefully to listen to Rosanna Arquette, check out Davidji's show this week, and generally just share what's going on in my stream of consciousness for this period of time, and see if it's of interest to you. If not, let me know. If there's other things that you'd like me to include, happy to try and do that. As I said, live video is the next frontier, and hopefully that'll happen later this year as well. I'm going to listen to this back, because I have a sense I'm saying hopefully an awful lot, and need to probably get some of those crutch words out. But at least you hear what it's like without editing, and maybe, hopefully not too much different. I would like to know if there's any guests that you would like me to approach and potentially interview. Always up for a challenge there to try and somehow persuade, convince, entice a top name on to chat with, or an esoteric character that I've never heard of, or that has something different to say. I would love to connect with them as well. So it's wide open. It is only as good as the guests that I have on the show, and hopefully with you guys helping me, suggesting names, help me to improve it, it'll get better, and I would appreciate that. So sign up to the newsletter. It's on the website. You can get that once a week on a Friday on all the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram things. Rob of the Green, there are pages and accounts there. Follow me, drop me a note, let me know what you make of all of this, and email rob@robofthegreen.ie as well. So that's pretty much it. I am going to now see, I don't have a producer here, so this last part is always the tricky one when I want to put in fade out music or underlay music, which I'm doing, and that will play as I slow down my talking and end the conversation. The one-way monologue random show. Nobody had the courage to chat. Now that could be because nobody is listening in live, and that's potentially the case as well. But for the folks that listen after the fact, hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, and I will leave it there. enjoy the episode with Davidji coming out on Thursday. That's David J.I., not G.I. And there we go. Have a great rest of Tuesday night, Tuesday week, and we will catch you next week perhaps, or sometime thereafter. Good luck. Thanks.